Good morning, everybody. I have a tribute that I will ask to be read at length.
The House of Representatives, convened in the 73rd General Assembly, hereby acknowledges and honors Home Education Day. Colorado law declares the right and obligation of parents to choose the proper education and training for their children. The members of the Colorado House of Representatives are thereby proud to recognize April 15th as Home Education Day in Colorado. The Colorado House further recognized parents who educate their children at home for their continuing sacrifice and commitment towards producing graduates who are successful and productive citizens because of the values, education, and training they have received from their parents. Home educated students are civically engaged, are well socialized, and are and score above average on standardized academic achievement tests. We are proud to honor, celebrate, and thank home educators and their children for their dedication to educational excellence and for their contributions to their communities. On request of Representatives Kim Ransom, Mark Baisley, and Tim Geithner, given this 15th day of April, 2021, State Capitol, Denver.
Wow.
Thank you, Mr. Gregorio. Representative Ransom.
Does it just make you want to cheer? This
All
is
right.
our day, guys. Well, we actually have Kim here, Kim Ransom, one of the legislators who's down at the Capitol today, and we would like to welcome her to Homeschool Day at the Capitol.
Hello, Kim.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're excited to have you take a little bit of time out of your busy day and share with us. And thank you for arranging that tribute and letting the entire legislative floor that we're here. We're excited about being involved in our state politics and what's going on. And so give us a little bit of your perspective of the state of the state. We may have some folks who are bringing questions. One of the cool things about the way we're doing this year is it's virtual. So we have people on the broadcast that may have a question or two for you. But tell us a little bit about what you're involved with and how you feel like things are going from your perspective in terms of homeschoolers and the legislature.
Thank you. They're going as well as can be expected, given what the voters of Colorado have sent to the Capitol as far as the majorities go. That being said, we have some real strong people on our House Education Committee, and you'll hear from one of them shortly. I guess two of them shortly. And what I will also mention is that you didn't play the comments after the tribute that was read, but those of us that were mentioned on the tribute that hosted it actually got up and made comments. So I homeschooled my own children, even as a single mom. And I always am excited to let folks know when I'm encouraging homeschoolers that don't give up. It's not easy. If I could do it as a single mom, you can do it too. And the three of my children that went to college all went on academic scholarships. So I always want to make sure that I share the fact that your kids are getting a great education. And I'm so proud of mine. Two of mine actually have advanced degrees now, master's degrees, and the other one only got a double major. So my kids have been just wildly successful after many years of being homeschooled, at home. And I remember the days back 25 years ago where the Capitol, because I was here with my children, it was wild with families, large families running around, hand delivering cookies to legislators and asking questions, answering questions, filling out questionnaires. It was just wonderful to see the kids here sharing with legislators that may not have been familiar with homeschooling at all. They could see actual families in action. So welcome to everybody here. I'm glad you're here. I hope next year you are here at the Capitol with us. This virtual stuff I'm tired of. I am ready to have you back. So let's all hope that we can see you in person next year.
Amen.
Thank you, Kim.
Amen.
And if there's any questions, I'm happy to field one or two.
Well, before we do that, did we cut the video off? Was there more of the video that I interrupted? Okay. So
They read the actual tribute, and
Okay.
then there were four of us that made comments just for a couple minutes right after the tribute complete, after the clerk read the actual language of the
Okay.
tribute.
Okay, very good. Well, let's do this. We had a trivia question, so that was what the tallest building is in Denver is. And do we have the winner of the correct answer? The Scott family
All
was the
right.
first correct answer, and the correct answer was the Wells Fargo Center.
No.
That wasn't it. 1801 California. No, that wasn't it. It's the Republic Plaza, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so just so you know. Well done, Scott family.
You will have tickets free to
Yeah.
the Christian Home
I'm
Educators.
throwing in for that, so.
Yep, we
I
don't mind paying for that. You know what?
I
For
threw that
years-
in on the cuff.
Sorry, that was part of what we do.
That's right. Guys, the Christian Home Educators
Congratulations
of
to the Scott
Colorado annual conference is one of the best things you can do to help you fortify yourself as homeschoolers. I always said, Thelma, this is your time. This is your time to get away. And I'm sure you've done that as well,
Kim.
Kim, and been to those conferences. They're so encouraging to hear the speakers and all the vendors and everything like that.
Conferences. I strongly encourage people that are even thinking about homeschooling to
Yeah.
attend. And you may or may not know that I'll be teaching a couple of the classes
Great.
in
Wow.
June at this upcoming conference. So I'm excited. I've done a little bit of prep work, and I'll finish up more prep work after the legislature adjourns,
Thank you. Kim.
for the year. So in a few weeks, I'll be able to finish up my talk and the prep for it. But yes, I will hopefully get to meet many of you at the conference. I will be there. I will plan on spending some time walking around the booths and looking at what's for sale. Although, as I mentioned, my kids are all grown now. My youngest
Right.
is 24, so my kids are all out of school, and I'm complete with my homeschooling years. But again, it was part of our family structure for many, many years.
Well, thank you, Kim, for sharing. I think we have some other legislatures, Jim.
I got one question for Kim before she goes.
Absolutely.
How-
The
how
next
did-
one up.
Hold on, before we go, what made you decide as a homeschool mom to get involved in
That's
state
good.
politics? And because there's a lot of kids that are, or maybe even moms right now who could later on be, sometimes we all think, it's somebody else's job, but we got homeschool moms here who are, their husbands are off busy working, and they think, how will I ever be done changing diapers? Will I ever be done, trying to run curriculum and dealing with screaming kids? But you made that transition, and how did that happen for you?
Well, I felt like I taught phonics for years. I did. I taught phonics for years. And so my kids grew up, and I was actually active in politics even while they were young. While my husband was still alive, I was active in politics because I wanted to make sure the homeschool law had just been passed in Colorado a couple years earlier when I first started homeschooling my kids. And I wanted to make sure we didn't lose those freedoms. I wanted to make sure that I could continue to teach my children at home. I knew that that was what I was called to do. So there was a man that was running for the State Board of Education. I knew he would take a bullet for homeschoolers if he ever had to, and he would make sure that that law would still continue. And I worked on his campaign. His name is Dr. John Evans. Some of you may have known him. He served on the State Board of Education, then he ran for state senate and won. And I was his aide for several years. So I was active in politics for a long time. And when I first ran in 2014, that my youngest had just graduated from high school, and I was heavily recruited. My phone started ringing the night that a vacancy had been declared, that I had to run. So that is actually why I have my badge and why I'm serving. I felt like there were some freedoms that were trying to be taken away from us, both on a federal and a state level. And I wanted to do my part to push back and to show the successes, not just of homeschooling, but just of freedom and liberty in general.
Well, thank you for fighting the fight for our state. And we appreciate that you're in there on the front lines in a fairly hostile environment.
Yeah.
And we just appreciate you, Kim. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
And I will introduce Representative Mark Baisley, a good friend who's the ranking member on education. No, he serves on the education committee, and he will be able to talk to you in more detail about some of the bills he's seen. Thanks so
right.
much for having me.
Thank you.
Well, welcome, Representative Baisley.
Hello, Frank.
Hi, thank you. And let me say right up front that one of those phone calls to Representative Ransom to convince her she needs to run for this office was from me. I'd like to think I was the first call. I don't think I was.
That's
But
wonderful.
anyway, wonderful to be with all of you. Thanks for having me here.
Well, great to have you. Tell us a little bit about what things you're working on in the committee and what things that you're fighting against, and just a little bit of a state of the education committee within your
Sure.
office. Yeah.
You know, coincidentally, so I didn't hear well what the question that the Scott family got right, but I think it may have to do with a bill that just passed an important vote on the House floor this morning, and that has to do with teaching civics in our school. So it's a high level requirement, not quite a standard and certainly not enforced curricula, which is unconstitutional within the state constitution. But it's to provide an emphasis on teaching founding principles, the Declaration of Independence, which is extremely important. So for all of us to understand the spirit of all that. And in the bill, the original bill, the introduction used democracy 5 times to describe the United States as a democracy 5 times, leading up now that the actual active words, the enacting clauses below there did appropriately use constitutional republic. But I ran an amendment that they embraced, and to my great surprise and pleasure, both on the House and the Senate side, they're in agreement. Oh yeah, we do need to reflect the reality that the United States was established as a constitutional republic and not a democracy. So anyway, little steps, you know.
Hey, baby
that's
steps are what
Really
matter.
good.
Right?
That matters. That really matters. So thank you.
Yes, and
Yeah, and
so
in this climate, especially. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, amen, amen. Well, what kinds of things, what other things are you working on in the committee, and what are some of the bills that we should keep an eye out for, and maybe even be writing letters to our legislators about?
Yeah. So there's the general area that has me concerned is it's more general throughout the country right now, and that's on it's the term media literacy that they use. And so there are a couple of complementary bills. Now the other side of the aisle claims that they are not connected, but there's a term that's used called incrementalism, where they break down a goal into smaller pieces and build that puzzle over time to where you don't realize that you're being boiled in that water, right?
Mm.
So one of the bills that passed out of the House, I believe still over in the Senate, that would be worth trying to squash is a media literacy bill. It's very, very difficult. The problem with it is, let me tell you what the claimed goal is they claim that the goal is to teach critical thinking in students, so that when they read something on Facebook or hear something on the news or something, that they don't take it at face value, that they research and see, is this true or not? Well, we've been seeing what fact checking looks like, you know, from the big tech and so on. So it's part of that. Now there's a new social media literacy bill, but it's coming from the Senate now. It's on its way over, and that's the complementary bill. And that is to put the reins on social media from the state and control what can be said and what is true or not. This is scary stuff. You know, this is like the kind of thing that movies from the 60s were made to, you know, can you imagine if the government got so big that it started controlling speech? Well, here we are. So that's the kind of thing we're fighting every day. It's difficult to advance our cause when we're in the super minority as we are. The two things that I'll say that protect us to where we need to have heart are the other side's concern about getting reelected if they get too crazy, but they're pushing the envelope. They're going to push the envelope hard this year, because next year they'll calm down because they need the folks to forget what they did in time to get reelected. But they get concerned about being reelected, and then the other thing that of course holds the line is the United States and the state constitutions, which are both good documents to, one's magnificent, one has got a lot of good in it, but it's way too big, and that's the state. You know, the US Constitution takes up like 5 pages in the books that we have like here in the room, and the state constitution is about an inch thick of that book, so it's kind of a mess. But anyway, but that's what we use to hold the line.
Well, thank you. That's great. And you don't have to get much further than the First Amendment if people just have understanding that we can't have people telling us what media we can accept and not accept. And the free speech gives us the access to the truth, right? So I appreciate you standing for that and pointing that out. I love how sometimes critical thinking is the latest speech for we're going to control the way you think. So,
Well, thank you for what you're doing in the Education Committee, because, you know, many of us, you're fighting our fight. And how would be the best way, you know, what is some things that maybe you could give us those 2 House bills, the Senate bills, if you have the numbers, or maybe we can get those in the chat put later so that we can actually write letters for those.
Yeah, I will follow up.
Hey, we'll put them right in the chat. Just go find them and we'll put them in the chat.
Okay.
That's the beautiful thing about doing a virtual homeschool day at the Capitol is we can have interactive stuff going on.
Yep.
So,
So we've got it. Go ahead and put it in there. That'd be great.
yep.
Yeah, and if folks can contact their own state senator, their own state representative, let them know that their vote will be influenced by how they treat those bills. So that's it. So, well, let me just get ready to introduce my successor here in the address to you all, and thank you all for what you're doing. I make no new news by saying the controversial statement that I don't think government should be involved in delivering the instruction. It should only be, that was a mistake that we made a long time ago as a society, that we allowed government to teach. So you guys are stepping up as Christian parents, and boy, anything we can do to support you in that, we sure want to do. So God bless you all. Thanks for what you do on the front lines with your kids, getting ready to prepare them for the future. I'm proud to introduce my good pal from El Paso County, Representative Tim Geithner.
All right. Thank you. Hi, Tim.
I'm in the hot seat.
You're in the
How
hot
are
seat.
you? Good to be with you, Thelma and Jim.
It's great.
It's great to have you, Tim. El Paso County. I appreciate you representing the folks of Colorado Springs and surrounding area. And tell us a little bit about what you're seeing. Give us a perspective of what things we should be doing, how homeschoolers can get involved, homeschool families and their kids.
Sure. So I'll start off by saying, I think so there's 9 members that make up the House Education Committee, just for the viewers in the audience.
Okay.
Of those 9 members, there's only 3 Republicans. There are 6 Democrats. So you can see kind of what the balance there is. And that holds true throughout that chamber. The House is made up of 65 members. You've got 41 Democrats and 24 Republicans, just so that the audience kind of understands the makeup of where the House is. On the House Education Committee, I'm the only one, I guess I get to make this claim, that actually homeschools their kids currently. And so it's something that my wife and I embarked upon quite some time ago. My youngest is 10, he's in 5th grade. My oldest is 13, he's in 7th grade. And we've done it from the beginning. My wife used to be actually a classroom teacher. So she used to teach high school English 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. And at one point while we were active duty, we're in my office, and this is some of my Army stuff that's around. But in the moves, I came home one day and she was like, hey, what do you think if we homeschool? And it hadn't been something that I had thought of, but we said, let's look into it. Let's figure it out. Let's see if it's right for us. And I can tell you that it has been such a blessing for us and for our family. My oldest is dyslexic, and we were able to identify that very early on. And as a result of being able to identify that early on, we had the flexibility that we needed to find the curriculum that worked best He could see his younger brother not struggling like he was. He, started getting a little down. And so making that change, he's probably the most ferocious reader in our house now. He absolutely enjoys sitting down with a good book. He's told us, maybe I want to be a librarian or be a owner of a bookstore. So to see that type of a change in a kid, especially mine, where, he was frustrated and just kind of doubting his abilities to the point that he's at now. I think that's just one of the beauties and the blessings that, homeschooling has rewarded our family with, and specifically my oldest. So here in the Capitol, I can tell you, I'll follow up a little bit on the piece of policy that Representative Baisley was talking about. That was 1103. So 1103 has made its way out of the House. It's with the Senate now. I don't think that the Senate has had their first hearing yet. I believe that might be next week, 22nd, I think. So that's when that bill will be heard in the Senate Education Committee. I was successful in getting one amendment on that bill. 1103, Representative Baisley talked about the media literacy aspect. What it did was 2 years ago, 2019, it created a committee that was going to look at media literacy. And then from there, what they were going to do is create a resource bank that was supposed to have a lot of the products that the committee identified as good resources that could go in there that would then be made available to teachers. And that's part of what 1103 did this year, is it stood up that resource bank. So it took their committee's report, it's 160 some pages, it's a PDF, it's available on the Education Department's website, and it puts it into a resource bank that teachers can use. The problem that I saw, one of the bigger problems I saw, and there was a lot of problems with the bill, but there was no public interaction where you could take comments from the public to say, hey, wait a minute, we don't know if this resource is necessarily appropriate, or did you even consider this resource that's over there? That was the biggest issue, I think, that we, or not the biggest issue, but one of the bigger issues that I noticed was that there was no public buy-in. And so here you have a public education system that didn't allow for the voice of the people of Colorado to interject and say, hey, wait a minute, maybe not that, have you looked at this? So we were able to I was able to get an amendment onto that bill, which helped at least define a mechanism where the public does have buy-in. And so that was definitely a success, but the bill still has several issues. I was a no on the bill. If the Senate does make any amendments to it, it'll have to come back to the House based on those amendments. I don't know that I can get to a yes. I think it's kind of just a lost cause. It's unfortunate because the bill's purpose was to teach bias. And when you look at the resources that are in the resource bank, it's fair to say that there is some controversial resources in there, which may have a bit of bias or a lens of bias. And so how can you set up a resource bank that some would argue may have bias in it that is supposed to then teach you on how to identify bias? Yeah. It's just, it's a frustrating piece of legislation. I'll tell you a piece of legislation I'm working on. So that was maybe the bad, right? Well, I'll kind of close up that one just so that the audience knows. House Bill 1103. One of the bills I'm working on this year is House Bill 1059. 1059 has to do with e-learning protections. And so as you look at COVID, as you look at homeschooling, as you look at just the schooling apparatus across Colorado, we have a lot of flexibility in how we go about it, whether it's person to person, whether it's online, whether it's even just pieces of it and it's more cottage aspect, whatever that looks like. The concern that we identified was a specific family that ended up being an advocate nationwide, because we had issues in other parts of the country as well, where a child had a Nerf gun. And they moved the Nerf gun across the field, just like I would with my phone. I would move this across. And the school district called the police and had the police come and visit the student at his home, visit with his parents. And all he was doing was literally moving something out of the way. He's in his own environment. He's in his own house thinking, oh, my toy, it's in the truck. And so House Bill 1059, my bill, is called the E-Learning Student Protections Bill. It's actually going to be up for action today. We already took testimony on this a couple of weeks ago. Two of the things that it does is it does not, it prohibits schools from saying, hey, mom, dad, you can't be in the room, because that was one of the issues that we were hearing from parents, is that they were saying, hey, mom, dad, you can't be in the room while your student is taking your e-learning. And I don't know that that's necessarily appropriate, and certainly wrote that into the bill. So there's a prohibition against that. Another big thing that it does is the use of cameras. Not every family has, tech that works well, but yet there seemed to still be a requirement that, cameras be on the devices, whether it was a mobile, like a telephone or a tablet or a computer. And so this one says, hey, you can't necessarily require a camera on a device. And then the third thing that it does is it definitely separates. As we look at existing statute is kind of silent on whether or not the private residence is a school facility. And so that's how this particular school district was able to call the police. And they actually spoke to the student. They said, hey, we could charge you for disrupting the learning environment. It was broad overreach. But so 1059 also helps clarify existing statute that says, hey, the private residence is not a school facility. And I think that we all need to feel confident and safe in our homes, especially as we do instruction, if we're reaching across, for cottage aspects, supports, or other, whether it's a homeschool enrichment program or other. It's important that we all feel safe in our homes. And so those are probably three big characteristics of 1059. I think it's going to be successful today. I've had to work my tail off on some amendments, being in the minority, but I think we're going to get it across the finish line. We'll get it out of committee. And so I'm hopeful it'll be on the House floor here early next week.
Wow, that's an
Thank you.
impressive fight. Thank you. It's such a blessing to know that you're in the fight, you're in hostile territory. I'm guessing you're on a committee where the majority of the people on your committee have always viewed homeschoolers as weirdos or something like that. And here you are, a homeschool dad. I can only imagine that you're influencing these people to help them understand that actually, no, we're actually normal people who care about our society and are doing this because we think it's the right thing. Any testimonies of a fellow member of your committee who's changed their perspective by getting to know you and your family?
I think that I don't know that there is a sense of hostility. I would definitely say, I think it's definitely safe to say that there is a curiosity. Certainly about how homeschooling works. There's certainly questions like, how do you pick your curriculum? How do you know what you're doing is the right thing to do? There are these types of questions. I spoke a little bit about this in the homeschool community, as you guys know, as CHEC knows, is an incredibly tight-knit community. I mean, parents are all too willing and eager to help each other. Like, hey, if you're struggling because your child may have some sort of a learning disability, have you looked at this particular curriculum? I think that's really where it is. I think the majority tends to look at sort of certifications, right? Certified teachers, certified this, this demonstrates your prowess, this demonstrates your professionalism, this demonstrates your ability. And that's not necessarily always the case. I can say for my wife, she used to teach in Florida. She never has taught here. She's not a certified licensed teacher by Colorado's standards by any sense of the imagination. I'm not either. But we both have navigated these waters incredibly well. Both of my kids are above average readers. They're above average in math. They're exceeding all the standards. And that just goes to the level of intimacy, I think, that the parents actually bring to their students. That's really what it's about, right? I don't think parents can show more love to their child than giving them that education that they desperately need. My kid will sit there and he'll have a book in his hand, and I'll be like, make sure you thank mom, because your ability to read that book came directly from her, and it'll be with you for the rest of your life. It's going to open up all these doors. What a gift, what a blessing for a mom to be able to give to her son, for a parent to be able to give to their child. It's remarkable. So I think that there's generally a curiosity. I think it's definitely good to have a level of perspective of what homeschoolers, what our challenges are, what our concerns are, what bills we might look to and be, hey, maybe this might go a little bit too far. I think it's good to have that level of perspective on the committee.
Well, that's awesome.
Thank you, Representative Geithner. That is great perspective, and who loves your children more than you do, right? And there's so many obvious things, but it's neat that you're bringing that to the forefront and you're representing us in a marvelous way at our state capitol. So thank you for being with us today. That's awesome.
Well, thank
Of
you,
course.
everyone. I appreciate it. It's been awesome to have you guys here today. It's been incredible. One of the things that Jim and I realized is this very year for him and I has changed. I was went on a walk in 2020 in my own neighborhood, And I think we're still on, right? Okay. And I was on a walk in my own neighborhood, and someone asked me, I got to homeschool. How am I going to homeschool? And it was really neat because you know what? The world has changed. People are looking, they're wanting to know more about what we do. Wow, incredible to have all our legislators here today.
Yeah,
we
this was an
appreciate-
amazing day. We had, we just left a live meeting with legislators at the Capitol.
Right.
We heard from a leader of a seminary, one of the top selling business authors in the country in this area of conservative and homeschool thinking, a Christian worldview. We got to hear from America's Constitution coach in Rick Green. We heard from legislators, Kevin Lundberg,
Oh.
the party leaders, guys.
It's really cool. You know, we got to hear from people who are down in the fight.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but I came away today and I just want to fight more. I want to remember that we've already won. We
Mhm.
talked about the hope and the expectations. And I hope today it helped you feel like one more time, you actually can make a difference.
Yeah.
What you're doing right now is making a difference. And let's get there. There's a lot of emails given. There was a lot of websites given. There was a lot of books recommended. I don't know about you, but I'm going to go home and I'm going to be like, it's going to be by Central. I don't know. No,
Yeah.
I guess that's just what happens to me after I won at one of these. So anyway.
I'm convicted. I feel like I could be doing more. And maybe you are too. Guys, let's take control of our state. Let's use, there's a phrase that says, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. You're involved in your children's lives. Let's take our families and make an impact in our state, in our country. How cool was it to be with you today?
It's great.
God bless you in your journey. The Lord be with you. And from Christian Home Educators of Colorado, we just want to say, go for it. Let's make an impact in our society, and we'll see you at the conference in June.